be safe. He picked his way forward, and she edged back until they both stood on the well-worn path to the hotel. The Geyser Gateway Inn sat with its back to a stand of pine, clabbered sides a cheery yellow she had to repaint after every good storm. Toby had fallen in love with the place at first sight, and she hadn't been far behind. If her late husband hadn't gone out that night a year ago, he might have been waiting on the veranda even now. But he would never have confronted people with a rifle. For Toby, life had been about boundless enthusiasm. She'd always been the practical one. Her quarry today relaxed his stance, watching her. Now that he was closer, she could see that his eyes were a clear greenish-brown, like a reflection in a mountain lake. They narrowed at her. "What are you planning on doing?" he asked. "Arresting me or shooting me for dinner?" Toby would have accompanied the question with a good-natured grin. This man didn't look as if he knew how to grin. Why did she have the urge to test that theory? Kate made a show of looking him up and down. "I doubt you'd make much of a meal for my guests. Too much grit. And I generally turn game your size into the wild to grow up a bit." He grimaced. "Should I thank you for that?" Despite herself, Kate smiled. "No need. All part of the service at the Geyser Gateway." He nodded toward the hotel. "You must be Mrs. Tremaine." Now, who would have told him about her? She'd had a single conversation with his superior, who had graciously allowed her to keep her concession, for now. She hadn't been sure about Captain Harris when he'd ridden into the park at the head of Troop M. But she'd applauded when he'd ousted D.W. Ware, the superintendent, from Washington. Ware had all but washed his hands when it came to protecting the game of the park, claiming too few men and too little time. What did he know about time? Had he ever tried running a hotel? She lowered her rifle. "I'm Kate Tremaine. Who are you?" He took off his hat, showing short-cropped brown hair streaked with gold, and inclined his head. "Lieutenant Will Prescott. I've been ordered to patrol this part of the park with my men." So, that was how Harris was going to manage the vast acreage. Since his arrival, his men had been busy battling the wildfires raging over parts of the park. Ware claimed they had been set by his enemies. She knew better, and she'd been watchful lest the same trouble start here. Having her own set of cavalrymen patrolling the natural wonders might be useful, so long as they didn't blunder in where they shouldn't. "Glad to have you," Kate said. "Feel free to stop by for dinner, but mind your step in the future. Do you have any idea how hot that mud is?" "More than 150 degrees, he said with a glance at the nearest bubbling paint pot, which helpfully belched out another cloud of steam. "At least, that's what the guidebook claimed." Kate snorted. "Guidebook? Which one did they give you? Wiley isn't too bad, though you have to watch his directions or you could end up going over the falls. Don't get me started on Dabney. That man hasn't moved off his sofa in 30 years, much less toured Yellowstone." He knocked mud off the heel of his black boots. Most of the cavalry officers wore spurs, the silver or brass winking and rowels chiming as they walked. His boots were bare. "I've noticed," he said. "It's not easy to find your way around here." So her guests claimed. She had no trouble, but she'd lived here for 4 years, ever since Toby had convinced her to use the money her parents had left her to invest in the inn. "Think of the plateau as a big circle," she advised him. She nodded toward the inn, where a group of her most recent guests had come out onto the wide veranda to gaze at the grandeur. "We sit in the lower part of the basin."